Second of all, we are unique. There are no other junior companies in Uruguay and southern Brazil and northern Argentina. If you want access to this emerging story, Challenger Energy is the only place where investors can go.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Challenger Energy CEO, Eitan Uliel. Eitan, very good to speak with you. So 2024 was an exciting year for Challenger. Tell us a bit more about the milestones you hit over the course of the year.
Well, hi, thanks and happy New Year. I think we can still say that. Yeah, no, 2024 was a great year for Challenger. We've described it, as transformative in a way. The key milestone was the progress we made with our Area OFF-1 block in Uruguay. In March of last year, we advised that we'd entered into a very good farm out agreement with Chevron that would see the future of that block, charted for the next couple of years at least. And it took a bit longer than we'd hoped for, but in November of last year, we reached closure of that deal. So we got all the relevant Uruguayan approvals, and we financially closed that deal with Chevron. So that's all now sort of banked, as it were. And in parallel to that, we made good progress with our Area OFF-3 block. So we formalized the award of that license. We began the technical work program on that license. And again, we laid out the course for the next few years for that block. So essentially, the company, in terms of the assets and operations, made really significant progress. We also saw the addition of Charlestown Energy to our share register. Charlestown may not be a household name in the UK, but they're a very well-respected investor in our space. They were early investors into Namibia, which is the great exploration success story of the last couple of years, and seeking to replicate that. They've taken a fairly sizable shareholding, and one of their people has joined our board. So that was another kind of corporate level milestone. And I guess to round it out in a corporate sense, as a consequence of the farm out and all the things we've been doing, we ended 2024, as I've said in a few other forums, in the best financial position we've been in for quite some time. I mean, we're a small company, but as it stands, we have an absolutely clean balance sheet. We don't owe anything to anybody, no debts. We've got a very healthy cash surplus, more than enough to meet all of our obligations for the foreseeable future. So we don't need to be looking for or raising any more money, at least for another couple of years. And we've really repositioned the company, and we start 2025 in a great place.
Can you tell us a bit more about the farm out of OFF-1 to Chevron? What's the current status, and what would you like to achieve on the license in 2025?
The farm out saw Chevron taking a 60% interest and becoming the operator, which took effect in November. That left us with a 40% interest. I stress this time and again, so many people have just overlooked how important that 40% interest is. There aren't too many junior companies who maintain such a big interest. That was the key thing for us in the farm out, because that's how we pay for things if things go well. If Chevron make a discovery and decide they want to drill 5 or 6 new wells, we have 40%, we can sell another 20, farm out another 20. And, the risk that so many of our peers face, everyone worries so much about what happens if things go badly. Well, in exploration, if things go badly and you find nothing, it's a pretty obvious outcome. But the real challenge for small companies is what happens if things go well. You've got to be able to cough up your share of funding toe to toe with the majors. And so anyway, back to the point. We retained the 40% interest. Then Chevron paid us $12.5 million of cash, which has been received. That's what gives us that great financial position I mentioned earlier. And then the most important stuff, they've agreed to carry 100% of the cost of an accelerated 3D seismic work program. And then if that leads to an exploration well, we get carried half of the cost of that well. So again, pretty good metrics. To your question as to what we hope to achieve, during 2025, Chevron will commence that 3D seismic work program that will see various, work streams kicked off. And that's all in support of one thing, making a drilling decision. And as I've said in various other places, we hope that drilling decision will follow, in 2026 with a view to the well happening 2027 or thereabouts. So that's what we hope to achieve with Area Off 1. Area Off 3 is similar. We're right in the middle of the technical work. I've said that we'd like to see all of that wrapped up in the first half of the year. That's with a view to starting a farm out process. We're just trying to replicate exactly what worked so well for Area Off 1, and we'll run the farm out process through the second half of the year. So our hope is that we secure a farm out partner by the end of this year and be able to close that transaction during the course of next year.
Eitan, what excites you most about Uruguay? Is it simply the geology, or are there other aspects that may prove favorable for developing your assets successfully?
No, any good oil and gas project lives and dies on the geology, first of all. And until wells are drilled, anything can happen. But at this point in time, we have all the work we've done. We have all the information and learnings that's coming from Namibia, which, as people may recall, is the conjugate margin. The Orange Basin in Namibia, which is where the big discoveries have been made, is the direct conjugate margin for the basin we're in Uruguay. So you get a lot of comfort around the geology, and all the work we did last year established good prospects. There were oil seeps that correlate to exactly where those prospects are, basin seafloor geochemistry studies. So the technical story is very robust. And you don't just have to take my word for it. I mean, we were able to get Chevron in, and they're one of the world's leading oil companies. And believe me when I say we were put through the ringer on the due diligence in the farm out process. So not just by Chevron, by everyone who participated. So the technology, the technical story is a robust one in Uruguay. So everything lives and dies on that. But then over and above that, you have to have a favorable environment in which to do this stuff. And the Uruguayan government, having been doing this for 20 years in various places around the world, including many places that are sort of quote unquote described as frontier, I can tell you hand on heart, Uruguay has been one of the best places. The legislation is clear, it's simple, you have access to the government, everything works, everything's done on time. The fiscal regime is very supportive, the tax regime, the business environment. So coupled with really good technical fundamentals, we have a very good above ground, place. And it's the combination of those two things that really make Uruguay stand out, we would say.
Now, Eitan, as 2025 gets underway, give us the investment case for Challenger.
Well, it's pretty simple. In fact, almost embarrassingly simple sometimes, because our story has really narrowed. We have prime assets, two prime assets, multiple plays, multiple prospects, but two very large prime assets in what has become one of the world's emerging frontier exploration hotspots. So that's first of all. Second of all, we are unique. There are no other junior companies in Uruguay, in southern Brazil, in northern Argentina. If you want access to this emerging story, Challenger Energy is the only place where investors can go. All the other participants are majors, Shell, Chevron, YPF, etc. We're the only company that offers direct exposure to this emerging story. That's two. And three is, we'd say, for various reasons, we're pretty undervalued. Now, admittedly, in the last 4 weeks, our share price has gone up very nicely, and we're very pleased that finally it appears people are noticing the work we've done. But, compared to many of our peers and looked at in terms of the sheer value embedded in only the farm out we did with Chevron, we would say that there's still a considerable gap between what the market presently values us at and where we could be. And that's not including what happens if you actually see wells drilled and discoveries made. So investment case is great assets, a unique access to those assets, and an undervalued position at the moment. It's pretty simple.
Well, Eitan, I hope you'll keep us posted on your progress as 2025 gets underway. Thank you very much for the time today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's Challenger Energy CEO Eitan Ulliel.